Perfection for a storyline goes hand in hand with the setting, characters, and lore. However, no one focuses on the key aspect of a story: the reason. Fortnite started out pretty small with their storyline. It all started with a meteor popping up in the sky, and it left players questioned and perplexed. Why is this meteor here? Could it be aliens? Could it be something intruding with the island? But what these players didn't know is that this was the start of a major storyline for arguably one of the biggest and greatest games on the face of the earth. I remember on this particular weekend, my cousin came over to my house, and we were both perplexed. We were sitting there wondering, what does this mean? What do all these meteors mean? And what does this mean for the future of the game? But we knew it meant something. They wouldn't just randomly add these into the sky after the game being out for 3 seasons. About a month later, I came back from school and I decided to hop on Fortnite. I played a few matches and I decided to walk into one of the rooms and I saw that the TV had a emergency broadcast on. It was a llama. I really didn't know what this meant, but I believed it had some sort of tie to the meteor. And can we just appreciate the audio of the meteor for a second while it was floating in the sky? The only way that you could hear this audio is if you were staring directly at the meteor. Fortnite was very subtle with this, and I believe that's why they had so much success in Chapter 1 with the storyline.
From the darkest depths of deep space, mystery is on a collision course with danger.
Now, I remember vividly when this season came out, and obviously there was a reason for those meteors. They were for the introduction of Season 4, and I thought that was the end of it. I thought that these meteors weren't a storyline. It didn't make sense to me at first, and that's what everyone else thought as well. This was just a teaser for Season 4, hence, that's why it was called Brace for Impact. But it wasn't just a teaser for Season 4. It created the structure and the framework for the future storyline of Fortnite. And I'll go more into depth with this later, but Fortnite's storyline and their seasons were flush. And what I mean by that is that they paired together. It's like Doritos and Mountain Dew, or cheese and grapes. It seems so flush and perfect just because they had it all aligned already with the seasons pairing perfectly with the storyline. Now, if you didn't know, whenever this meteor hit, it hit Dusty Depot and created what we know now as Dusty Divot. From my research, I discovered that the divot in these meteors were actually controlled by some sort of government in the game. And the more that I looked at it, I realized this is the case because of the trucks that were laying around, along with the camp that they had set up. But a little later down the road, there was actually a character or person that broke out of Dusty Divot that was inside of the facility. And that person today we know as the Visitor. The Visitor resided in a mountain in sort of an Avengers style cave. Now at first we thought this was going to be something Avengers related because we did get Thanos in the game. But it turned out that wasn't the case. The Visitor was planning his way back home, and that's when we got the rocket event. Now, keep in mind during all of my explanations, the point I made before with being a perfect pair and these events leading on to other seasons and keeping everything flush and pure. So the rocket event happened, the Visitor took off, he left, and opened a rift in the sky of the Fortnite island. Players were speculating what these rifts meant, and we found out very soon. And no, it wasn't in the game how we found out. It was actually in real life.
This is the newspaper from yesterday.
Did somebody drop a real giant-sized burger from Fortnite in the middle of the desert?
In California.
California.
There have been llamas that have popped up in Europe, South America, and there has been the giant Durr burger just randomly showed up in a desert.
It's legitimately in the middle of nowhere.
This is an anomaly.
The rift that the Visitor had opened had allowed a ton of entities to come into the Fortnite island, and we can see that even today with all of the skins and the collaborations that they've been adding. They've been planning this out since close to the day of release of how they want the framework of the game. It's actually crazy when you look back and think about it because Fortnite predicted how their game would be to this day. And honestly, I miss when Fortnite did these IRL teasers and spoilers. I wouldn't call it spoilers, but it's crazy. No other game did this. It seems so odd for a kids game to be doing this much marketing, but it seemed to be working. And also added a ton of more lore to the storyline because we weren't just talking about in-game lore. No, they brought this to a next level step up. They took it all the way to real life. Now, before the rift closed, something actually happened. An in-game live event that wasn't announced. Big jolts of lightning were hitting the ground on top of this mountain, and all of a sudden this cube appeared. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but this cube, which is now named Kevin the Cube by the community, actually spawned during a tournament.
Bro, why is that lasting so long? Bro, is this an event? What just happened? This is the tournament! What is that? Look, dude, I don't care. We're going here. What's happening? This is calculated.
The community absolutely loved this addition to the game. An inanimate object that was a cube sparked so much hype. And remember earlier how I said that Kevin the Cube was named by the community? He actually was. Now, Kevin would roll around the map, and no one knew where his destination truly was until leakers got a hold of it. People started to realize that the cube was heading towards Loot Lake. Fortnite fans were anticipating what would be next for Kevin. Would he just disappear into thin air? Would there be another lightning shocky event? Kevin would just fall into the water, into Loot Lake, and turn the Loot Lake purple and allowed you to jump on it like a trampoline. But here's the thing though. We didn't truly understand why Kevin went to Loot Lake. See, this was planned months in advance for why Kevin would just fall in Loot Lake. I mean, it didn't make sense. Yeah, making the lake into sort of like a trampoline seemed fun, and honestly it was. I enjoyed playing on the lake, but there was no real purpose. There was no real reason until Season 6 got announced, and we saw the first trailer. The entire purpose of Kevin actually going to Loot Lake is because there was something under the island house the entire time. The 0 point. See, Kevin tried to find the 0 point and knew exactly where it was because he felt the charge and the energy. He needed that energy to charge himself back up. At least this is what I read on Reddit. Now, after the Kevin the Cube incident, since the 0 point was fully exposed, this attracted new threats to the island, and a huge shard of ice clashed into the island during Season 7. The leader of this is the Ice King. Now, this Ice King has a ton of prisoners, one of them being called the Fire King, and once the fragment hit the island, the Fire King was released. Now, both the Fire King and the Ice King wanted to take the island for themselves, but obviously one of them could win. And since it's very snowy on the map, obviously the Ice King was going to be the one that wins, because he could just unleash a storm on the entire map. And the Fire King during Season 8 actually created his own volcano, which was to destroy Polar Peak. I actually didn't know this at all, and it's pretty funny because I was pretty invested in the storyline, but I didn't know that this was the reasoning for the volcano and for Polar Peak. This is something else I want to talk about really quick. I think that Fortnite was adding too many filler events during this time. Now that I'm editing and noticing all of this, Fortnite really did add too many little events, and they got us hyped up really for not a big reason. That's why it was so tough to keep track of the storyline, and that's why it's so tough to keep track of now. There was too many of these little events, and it was too tough to keep up with because I was just playing the game for fun. If Fortnite would have just focused on the smaller events, and I wouldn't really call Kevin the Cube a small event, but just have something lead up that's small and something that players can actually focus on, like the cube. It's not that hard to track the cube, but I mean, if they're adding dragon eggs and an antagonist and a protagonist, it's a lot tougher to keep track of. And yes, I understand that that's how most stories are, but for a video game, it's a lot tougher, especially when it's a battle royale. It's not a story game. The Fire King actually released his volcano, remember whenever it hit Tilted Towers? And it also hit Polar Peak, but it released a monster. This sort of dragon. And this is whenever we got the mech versus dragon event. And now that the 0 point is first off exposed and number 2 destabilizing, the Imagined Order, which is the team that tried to control the 0 point, tries a plan of their own, and that is to try and destroy it. However, when they shot it, it transported us into a black hole. There was no new content for 3 days until chapter 2 came out. Now, that sums up the entirety of chapter 1's storyline. Now, the question you may be asking is, why was it so perfect? And remember what I stated earlier? It was like a perfect pair. See, now it feels like they just throw things into the storyline that don't really make sense. Like, whenever they added the rock into the storyline as the foundation, it didn't really make any sense. And everything feels a lot more scrambled now. Now, yes, I know some of y'all in the comments are gonna be like, oh, it's not too hard to follow, blah, blah, blah. You only have to watch an hour video to understand what's going on. To people that don't really play the game that much, it doesn't make sense. Back then, it was way easier to understand because it was in your face. But now it feels like just kind of side quests that aren't really in the game. I think that's one of the reasons why newer Fortnite isn't as good as OG Fortnite, is simply because the story was a lot more uniformed and structured. Like I said, everything that was an event went with the season, and it was uniformed and planned months, maybe even years earlier. Also, chapter 1 had some insane characters. I mean, we had number 1, Kevin the Cube. He was an inanimate object, but people cared so much about him. Yes, it was lengthy with him traveling across the map, but it was something small like that that really brought some fun to the game. I know a lot of y'all may not agree with me, but just if Fortnite restarted their entire storyline and structured it a lot better without all of these collabs, and I don't even know what's going on. We had Peter Griffin in one of them, The Rock. It's too much. They need to really go back to their roots and keep a uniformed fashion for a storyline, because everything has to have a reason. Anyways, thank y'all so much for watching. It's been your boy Trickies. Join my Discord down below. We're doing weekly giveaways. Send a picture of you using code Trickies and you'll automatically be entered. But anyways, it's been your boy Tricky. I appreciate y'all so much for 3K subs. It's been absolutely wild. Hope y'all have a great rest of your day. It's been your boy Tricky, and I'm out. Peace.